Martin Hale, the charming financial advisor admired by his community, lived a life that looked flawless from the outside, but the shocking discovery of a hidden storage unit exposed a secret world of coded journals, forged identities, and connections to chilling disappearances, unraveling an elaborate plot no one ever suspected. The quiet suburban neighborhood had always been seen as safe, a place where people left their doors unlocked and waved to each other every morning. Life there was predictable, with children riding bikes along sidewalks and elderly couples tending to gardens. That sense of safety shattered on a cool autumn morning when a jogger taking a new route noticed something odd near a strip of abandoned shops at the edge of town. The jogger spotted a row of storage units, mostly neglected, with weeds creeping up their sides. One unit in particular caught attention. Its metal latch was bent, as if someone had forced it open before, and the door was slightly out of place. Curiosity turned into unease, and soon the authorities were contacted to take a closer look. When police arrived, they immediately sensed something was wrong. The unit's padlock looked recently tampered with, but there were no signs of anyone around. With the owner nowhere to be found, they decided to pry the door open. The first thing they noticed was the heavy, suffocating air that rushed out. Inside, instead of old furniture or forgotten belongings, the space revealed something entirely unexpected. Against one wall stood metal filing cabinets filled with folders, each labeled with names and dates. Spread across a large table were maps marked with circles, photographs clipped neatly in rows, and several forged identification cards. The discovery wasn't just unusual, it was disturbing. At first, officers thought it might be the work of someone running a small scam, but the deeper they searched, the more unsettling the scene became. Stacks of money and different currencies were hidden inside boxes, and surveillance equipment lay carefully stored in cases. There were burner phones lined up like tools, and a locked chest in the corner gave everyone pause. When it was pried open, what they found inside left even the most experienced officers shaken: journals filled with coded notes, a collection of keys to unknown locations, and personal belongings that clearly didn't belong to the man renting the unit. Word of the discovery spread quickly through the department, and whispers of a double life began to grow. This was no ordinary storage space. It was the center of a carefully constructed world, one that hinted at secrets far darker than financial fraud or petty crime. What began as a jogger-esque curiosity had now opened the door to an investigation that would unravel the hidden life of a man the community thought they knew well, and nothing about the neighborhood would ever feel safe again. Detectives wasted no time in tracing the storage unit back to its renter. The paperwork revealed the name Martin Hale, a man well known in the community. Martin was a respected financial advisor with a reputation for being trustworthy and polished. His office sat on the main street of town, decorated with certificates and framed photographs of charity events he sponsored. To anyone who knew him, Martin was the picture of success: a devoted husband, a careful businessman, and a reliable neighbor. The revelation that he was connected to the disturbing storage unit sent ripples of disbelief through everyone who heard it. People asked the same question over and over: how could someone so admired be tied to something so unsettling? When investigators began combing through Martin's records, the cracks in his carefully built facade appeared. Financial statements showed irregularities, with money moving in and out of accounts in strange patterns. Several of his clients had unknowingly been victims of his schemes, losing funds through quiet transfers masked as legitimate investments. While fraud alone was serious, it was only the surface of a far deeper mystery. Detectives knew that the photographs, maps, and coded journals in the storage unit meant Martin had been orchestrating something far beyond financial crime. Neighbors who once praised Martin as a model citizen now recalled small details that suddenly felt suspicious. He often worked late, sometimes disappearing for entire weekends under the excuse of business trips. His wife had once told a friend that Martin kept certain drawers in his office locked, refusing to let anyone near them. At the time, it seemed like the habits of a man who valued privacy. Now, those habits suggested a deliberate effort to hide something. The investigation quickly became a race to uncover what Martin had been planning. The presence of multiple passports with his photograph but different names pointed toward a double life, one that allowed him to move unnoticed. Detectives also discovered that the burner phones contained contacts across several states, including numbers linked to unsolved cases. Each clue raised the stakes, painting Martin not just as a fraudster, but as someone orchestrating a larger, more dangerous operation. The most troubling revelation was how easily Martin blended into society while concealing such deception. His charm, his generosity, and his apparent stability had been nothing more than a mask. What police had stumbled upon was not just evidence of a man stealing money, it was the blueprint of someone who had built an entire second existence in the shadows, waiting to be exposed. As investigators dug deeper, the true scope of Martin Hale's hidden life began to surface. The documents and photographs from the storage unit were carefully cataloged, and soon a disturbing pattern emerged. Many of the names listed in his files matched individuals who had gone missing over the past decade. At first glance, the disappearances had seemed unrelated, spread across neighboring counties, involving people from different walks of life. But when detectives connected the dots, they realized each person had, at some point, crossed paths with Martin. A former client, a local contractor he once hired, even a waitress from a restaurant he frequented, all had vanished without explanation. The precision of Martin's notes left little doubt that these weren't random coincidences. His journals detailed daily routines of his targets, their habits, their vulnerabilities, and even the routes they often traveled. Dates were underlined in red, corresponding with the times when those individuals had last been seen. Detectives began to see Martin not just as a man living a double life, but as someone who meticulously studied others, turning everyday encounters into opportunities for control. It was as if he had created a web, carefully designed to pull in unsuspecting victims who never realized they were being watched. The evidence also revealed something even more chilling. Martin had maintained records long after each disappearance. Notes were updated, as if he continued monitoring families, workplaces, and even police investigations surrounding the missing persons. He seemed to thrive on control, ensuring that he stayed several steps ahead of anyone who might uncover the truth. For detectives, this raised a terrifying question. How many of the names in his files represented lives already lost, and how many were future victims waiting for their turn? What troubled investigators most was the level of planning involved. Martin appeared to treat every interaction as part of a larger design, leaving no trace of his involvement. He had built false identities to move unnoticed, purchased properties under aliases, and maintained multiple bank accounts that allowed him to fund his secret activities. This wasn't impulsive behavior. It was a methodical operation carried out with patience and precision. By the time detectives pieced together the connections, the image of Martin Hale as a respected advisor had fully collapsed. The man they once saw smiling in local newspapers was now revealed as someone who had turned his intelligence into a weapon. Each missing person linked to him deepened the sense that this case was far more than financial fraud or deception. It was the work of someone who had spent years perfecting the art of vanishing without leaving a trace. The investigation took a darker turn when detectives followed the trail of Martin Hale's aliases and uncovered a secluded property hidden under one of his false identities. Tucked away in a rural area, miles from the nearest highway, the house appeared ordinary from the outside, with a small porch and overgrown grass suggesting neglect. But once the authorities gained entry, it became clear the building was anything but abandoned. The interior was meticulously organized, more like a command center than a home. Walls were lined with shelves of journals, each dated and stacked in neat order, while filing cabinets contained even more coded documents. The discovery revealed that Martin had created a private space to plan and record his elaborate operations, away from the eyes of neighbors and colleagues. Among the most disturbing finds were his journals. Each one described detailed observations, coded symbols, and carefully plotted steps outlining how he had manipulated situations to his advantage. The writings were chilling, not just because of their content, but because of the tone. They read more like technical manuals than personal notes, as though Martin viewed people as pieces in a puzzle rather than human lives. Investigators realized he had been keeping records for years, cataloging every success and failure with unnerving precision. Alongside the journals were items that seemed to act as trophies. Personal belongings such as watches, necklaces, and even childhood photographs of the missing individuals were stored in boxes, labeled with initials and dates. These objects provided the strongest link yet between Martin and the unsolved disappearances. Each item was evidence that his actions had gone beyond financial deception, suggesting his crimes reached into far more sinister territory. Technology in the house added another layer to the mystery. Hidden in a locked room were high-end surveillance tools, cameras, listening devices, and laptops programmed with encrypted software. The setup indicated he had been monitoring not only his targets, but also the progress of ongoing investigations. Detectives realized Martin wasn't just planning crimes. He was studying the people investigating them, ensuring he stayed ahead of the law at every turn. The sheer scale of what the property revealed left investigators unsettled. It was no longer the case of a man with a double life. It was the exposure of someone who had designed his entire existence around control, deception, and the thrill of staying hidden. The quiet exterior of the rural home masked a mind consumed by calculation, and the evidence found inside confirmed that Martin Hale was far more dangerous than anyone had ever imagined. The discoveries at the rural property painted the clearest picture yet of Martin Hale's secret life, but the final pieces of the puzzle came together only after investigators fully analyzed the evidence. The coded journals, once carefully deciphered, revealed a timeline of events stretching back more than a decade. Each missing person was listed like an entry in a ledger, complete with dates, locations, and notes about their last movements. The precision was unsettling, as if Martin had kept score of every life he altered or ended. Detectives were forced to confront the reality that his respectable image had been nothing more than a disguise, crafted to shield a far more sinister existence. What shocked investigators most was the scale of his elaborate plot. The forged passports, offshore accounts, and extensive surveillance suggested he had been preparing for an eventual escape. It became clear that Martin wasn't planning to simply maintain his double life forever. He intended to disappear entirely, leaving behind only unanswered questions. The storage unit and rural hideout had been part of a larger strategy, one designed to ensure that if suspicions ever grew too close, he could vanish without a trace, abandoning everything except his secret identity. Despite the mountain of evidence, one question lingered. Why had Martin gone to such lengths? His journals hinted at motivations rooted in power and control rather than money. Financial fraud had merely been a mask to sustain his hidden operations. The real driving force seemed to be the meticulous construction of an alternate world where he dictated every outcome. For Martin, living in plain sight as a successful advisor was a performance, while his hidden life was the reality he truly valued. The case eventually unraveled fully when investigators tracked his financial trail to a remote airport where he had reserved a private flight under another alias. Authorities intercepted him just days before his planned departure, preventing what could have been a clean escape. The arrest sent shockwaves through the community, as residents struggled to reconcile the polished figure they thought they knew with the man who had orchestrated such darkness behind the scenes. In the end, the gruesome discovery in the storage unit had not only exposed Martin Hale's double life but also revealed the scope of his grand design. He had fooled friends, clients, and even his own family, all while carefully plotting a future built on lies. The case served as a chilling reminder that the most dangerous secrets often hide in plain sight, and that sometimes the greatest threats come not from strangers, but from those who seem most ordinary.